Welcome to this short video discussion that we're having to discuss the outcome that we had at the World Procurement Congress. My name is Ian McNally. I'm one of the partners with Efficio. I've been in procurement and supply chain for over 35 years in both industry and consulting, and I work with lots of large global clients. I'm currently talking to you from our Efficio Shanghai office. I'm joined by two guests today, Fabienne and Angela. Fabienne has just completed a role as the CPO at Kone, the escalator and elevator company. She's previously been at similar roles in Britvic and the cooperative group, among a number of other roles. I'm also joined by Angela. Angela she's recently served as the CPO of the Lufthansa Group and the Chief Supply Chain Officer at the Iveco Group. And she now advises a number of other companies, one of them being Airbus. So some major companies in there. So today we will recap our recent breakout session that we had at the World Procurement Congress. We've talked through some of the main takeaways of that discussion. We had the opportunity to talk with over 100 procurement leaders and CPOs in our breakout session, and we ran some polls with them. Let me just talk you through some of those polls. The first discussion was, what is procurement under the most pressure to do today? Is it delivering cost and marginal improvement? Is it managing risk and supply chain disruptions, or is it supporting business growth and innovation? The results that we got from that discussion, first of all, the top of the group came balancing all of the above. So almost half responders said that was most important. I firmly believe if we'd done this poll 15 years ago, it would all have been around cost and margin improvement, and the other factors, although they would have been in there, would have been far less important. Now, I think because of things like Hormuz and tariffs and other geopolitical issues, supply chain resilience is becoming much more important. And we've also got lots of companies who are really focused on growth, and therefore procurement playing a role to support that is again becoming much more important. Let me ask our two guests to give some of their views. So let me first of all ask Fabienne, what's your perspective in terms of, are procurement functions equipped to deliver all three of the above now?
So, yeah, and I think they are to certain levels of maturity, and they have to be if they're not, primarily because I think you've got different scenarios right now. So you've got companies where the revenue is not growing, and in that case scenario, the pressure is going to be more on cost, especially if you work on directs for the CPO and the procurement team. And then on indirects, the pressure is going to be to introduce AI to drive efficiency of the organization in terms of productivity and so on. But when you look at second scenario, which is you're lucky if you're part of an industry where, there is also margin. I mean, I'm thinking about anything linked to AI or aerospace, defense, etc. There you're running after the supply chain because you're in so much growth, you can't find the product. Right. And then you've got the third scenario whereby companies look at these short-term difficulties, but also ask us to look at, what's the operating model of the future? What do I need to upskill my procurement team? Back to exactly what you said in terms of the level of maturity and what's expected of them. Because at the board level and at the ExCo level, since COVID, and let's face it, a lot of supply chains since COVID have not recovered, and it's crisis after crisis since then. Well, the board and the ExCo expect the procurement team to guide them on risk mitigation, finding new solution, innovation, and supply chain resilience is absolutely at the top there.
Angela, your view. I'm sure from some of your work in automotive and with airlines, the resilience and the risks in supply chains are super important. Have you got a perspective on this?
Indeed, I think the last couple of years is increasingly important that supply chain leaders have to have numbers, figures, facts, and trade-offs all at once ready at your fingertips. Because either the board or the executive committees, they rush to you and they want to know immediately what are the impacts from tariffs or supply chain disruptions. Therefore, I see a great pressure also for procurement supply chain leaders to make sure that you have also advanced technologies / AI, for instance, to be applied everywhere when possible so that you can make really informed decisions.
So takeaways from that, yes, we need to have all three. In order to have all three capabilities, we need a lot more information, we need a lot more skills, and we need to develop our capabilities. I'll move on to the second question. Again, we asked our 100 people, what their view was in terms of where they would like to invest in procurement capabilities moving forward. And we told them, give them a number of options and asked them to select 2 or 3 that were most important to them. The ones that came out top, unsurprisingly, were having advanced analytics and AI-driven decision-making, having strong business partner and influencing, and finally having supplier collaboration and innovation built in there. So let me again reach out to our 2 guests, and I'll ask Angela what your perspective on one of those 3 are.
Yeah. So first of all, I think it's not surprising to see the result. Nonetheless, I think technology alone does not create the advantage itself. The best procurement supply chain organizations, they should combine both digital capabilities, but as well as strong supply relationships, which is still a human, let's say, directed activities. And during the, let's say, COVID and recent geopolitical tensions, we also see a stronger supply collaboration is increasing a source of innovation, resilience, also become a competitive advantages if you want to remain relevant.
And Fabienne, your view, does this suggest that future procurement organization is as much about influence as technology?
So for me, I think right now the data and market intelligence linked with AI is what's really key alongside digitalization. Yeah. But if you want to introduce AI, you need to have the data. Start first with the data, because right now the ExCo and the board, they really wanted to join the dots around macroeconomics, weather, geopolitics, what's going to happen, what is going to be derailing the budget. And I used to say to my teams, every time you put the TV on, there will be a news that affects the supply. And it does, right? And it's having this intelligence that you can double check then with AI. Please have an opinion first. And then what do you do with AI? Because, we started on the journey quite a while ago and, it's been bumpy. But I think the most important thing is to really start step by step with AI. So introduce it in your organization using the data that you have for something you want to do specifically. And then your people will start to feel less nervous about AI, and we'll start to see the enabler that AI can be, and not a replacement of them. And I think if you develop your own AI capability, because there are so many people now who can do AI, and you start embarking on the journey, and then you add, some of the options that are out on the market now, you gradually develop AI and enhance the, I would say, capability and effectiveness of organization, because your people then can really spend their time on more value-add activity. But you need to have an opinion first in terms of the data yourself.
Building on that, I've had a number of discussions with some clients talking about AI and what they're doing. And what we're hearing is that they're spending a lot less time looking for tools that are going to do specific things for them, but spending more time trying to learn how to execute using existing mass market tools. And they're basically making a lot more progress by doing that. And that's something we're seeing internally within Efficio as well as with lots of our clients. So let me just pick up another one of those that came out at high: supplier collaboration and innovation. Fabienne, do you want to give us a view on that, your perspective?
Yes, I think it's absolutely critical, because you need to find plan B in order to make sure that on top of the inflation, you don't drive more costs. You need to constantly work with your supplier base for innovation. And back to this joining the dots and what's happening outside, and talking to the board about what the competition is doing or what is the newest innovation, that really helps you drive change and then, manage your risk as a result. And I don't think we spend enough time talking to our suppliers and listening to how much they innovate on. And I think it's absolutely critical that we spend more time with them on an ongoing basis.
So yeah, from my perspective, supplier collaboration become even more important throughout crisis moment. My experience shows how you treat suppliers today in good weather, they play back also in bad weather conditions. Therefore, I think a mutual respect, but also mutual benefits, as well as supporting each other, I think that's has to be greatly reinforced in for resilience at all. And last but not least, I would mention that actually most suppliers, they are much more, let's say, technology experts, and they have knowledges. And therefore, I think it's nothing wrong to turn to your suppliers and ask for ideas. Ask them to be part of your solution.
So the final question that we asked our guests in the session was, what would help accelerate capability building the most? We gave them a number of options, and these are the results. So let me turn first of all to Fabienne.
So for me, the first 2 points go hand in hand, because in terms of getting closer to your stakeholders, you need to basically have the data at hand to actually have the right conversation. So if you think about procurement touches everything in the company. And what I mean by this is that you interact with every single function in the company, and you interact with suppliers who have data about that function. So you have to take that data out from the outside and bring it back in. And that insight is extremely powerful. And when you sit down with your stakeholder, you really need to understand their business needs. You really need to understand what keeps them awake at night. How can you guide and support them? Because I think support is what they expect, but guide is also very important. And if you have the data around what's happening out there, how this is going to impact them, what their competition is doing, and you have a business discussion, this is when you become very much more closer to your stakeholder. So do not talk about procurement. When you go and see your stakeholder, it's a business discussion. And then you can derive what you need to do from them, from that discussion. But then you become a business partner, and a real one. And then you get to sit at the table. And what I mean by this, you get to sit at the table of a management team of the function, either a core member or extended. You can get a seat at the table at the exco, but you can sit at the table pretty much at any functions of the company if they see that you bring value in terms of the debate and the idea. So broaden your, I would say, discussion with your stakeholder base, but it's really the best way to get very close to the stakeholder full stop and the business.
Angela, your perspective on this result?
Right. I think I like to elaborate really the human aspects. How do we enable procurement supply chain functions to deliver value beyond the traditional, let's say, classical cost reduction activities? I think it's really start with also the mindset, the collaboration, but also strongly emphasize the operating models, how governance has to be set up to make sure that procurement supply chain are part of a decision-making process rather involve them too late. Having key suppliers got involved as design phase, making sure we have milestones to looking at KPIs, but making sure that procurement is a part of a broader ecosystem so that they can orchestrate, they can support the business units, the overall company objectives from a much better place. And I would like to also to emphasize the human behaviors, the culture change. In today's AI fast involvement, I think this is still a leadership perspective, a leadership topic that we have to make sure that whatever change and transformations, we have to take our team with us.
Okay, so I'd like to just do a quick wrap up. We've got some great reflections from both Angela and Fabienne in that discussion. Some of the key things I took away from it: one is building stronger alignment with the business with business priorities is a key activity we should be doing. Using external insights and external data and external information to become a more strategic partner and earn a seat at the top table, and strengthen our resilience and supplier collaboration capabilities so that we've got more resilience in our supply chains. That's our takeaways. They're some of the key things that should be built into our organizations. And thank you very much. Thank you, Fabienne. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
Thank you.